This video has been funded in part by the Guild via Patreon. Check out the links in the description or at the end of this video for more details. Hello everybody, my name is Chris Gildart, and welcome to the first pros versus cons mini review of 2023. I haven't made many videos on it, but I'm actually a pretty big fan of the Neptunia franchise. Just the commentary humor that touches on moments and trends in the gaming industry is just always on point. So when I saw that we were going to get a new game with completely revamped combat mechanics, I just had to jump in on that. Early on, I thought this would potentially be another hack and slash entry, along the same lines as Action Unleashed or even something like Four Goddesses. But as more information came out, it would become more clear that this was going to be its own thing. The first Hyperdimension Neptunia launched for PS3 in Japan on August 19th, 2010, and there have been so many games since, covering everything from traditional JRPGs to Musou games to an idol simulator? Suffice to say, the Neptunia franchise has been around the block a few times. Neptunia Sisters vs. Sisters was actually released in Japan on April 21st, 2022. Much like most games I'm excited to get my hands on, I do my best to stay away from news, gameplay, and reviews once a game hits store shelves in Japan. That way, when it comes out here, I can jump into it as if the build-up and promotion wasn't nearly a year ago. It's hard to believe that this game was actually released somewhere else almost a year ago. That sort of thing just doesn't happen anymore. But the question we're all waiting for, how is this game? Well, before we go too far, don't forget to give this video a like, comment with your thoughts below, and of course subscribe if you haven't already. Alright, let's take a look at Neptunia Sisters vs. Sisters. Ready, set, pros. Right off the bat, you can tell this game has been taken to the next level visually. The cardboard cutout scenes that I usually complain about are made way more dynamic with moving portraits. Sometimes games would do this just by emulating breathing, but Neptunia Sisters vs. Sisters takes it a step further by having their bodies move sideways, arms are moving as well. It just looks way better. On top of that, we finally have English voices back. After Virtual Stars and Ninja Wars going with a Japanese dub only, it's nice to have the English cast back. I know Virtual Stars likely went Japanese only because of the VTuber appearances, and Ninja Wars because Senran Kagura doesn't have an English dub, but I need to praise games that receive English voice acting when we get it. Conversation scenes aren't the only thing that's improved. I mentioned it briefly during the intro of this video, but combat has been completely revamped while carrying over the base mechanics from the original. Originally, Neptunia was a fairly basic turn-based JRPG, but starting from the sequel, we'd see them take the series in a more unique direction by having battles take place in a ring with free-roaming turn-based combat. You could pull off combos by combining different types of attacks that have different purposes. Neptunia Sisters vs. Sisters takes that free-roaming combat building idea and takes it into a real-time action design. Your characters can still run around the battle area, but you are now locked on to one enemy. You have two combo sets that you can build yourself as you level up and unlock more moves. Each character has AP, and each move in your combo will cost a specific amount. When you run out of AP, you will have to run around before you can gain enough to attack again. But if you start attacking when you don't have enough AP to finish your combo, you'll need to start running away again. The other option you have is to chain your combos by switching between the three characters in your party. When you're about to finish your combo, you will get a prompt to switch to another character. When you do, they will attack the enemy when you switch, and it won't cost you any AP. You can then start attacking with the other character, and when your combo finishes again, you can switch right away. It's a really great way to build off of the combat of the previous games while taking the series into a new era. I would compare this evolution to what we saw with Atelier Ryza compared to previous games in that series. Now, combat and visuals are all nice and stuff, but when it comes to a JRPG, we care about the story. If you don't have a good story, you just don't have a good JRPG. Well, I'm glad to report that Neptunia Sisters vs. Sisters actually has a pretty decent story. I honestly don't think anything will top the very first game for me, but I will say that I would put this game in the top tier of Neptunia stories. At the beginning, we're greeted by a battle between the CPU candidates and what appears to be a new goddess. After this opening, opening, we're taken to a couple years ago where the 4 goddesses are heading off to the PC continent to respond to a distress signal. While they are on their mission, Histoire sends the CPU candidates on their own mission to investigate a horde of monsters. During the investigation, they find themselves in an old laboratory where they find the new goddess held inside a capsule. When they release her, she seems to know who Nepgear is, but Nepgear doesn't know her. The new goddess locks the candidates in the capsule, which puts them to sleep for 2 years. When they are found, they are told that while they were asleep, the 4 goddesses were met with a brutal defeat against R4 at the PC continent. A space-time fissure opens above the continent and Neptune fights against R4 so the other 3 can help the inhabitants escape. However, she doesn't make it. During the last 2 years, a new device called the R-Phone starts gaining popularity while monster attacks become more prevalent. People are told to stay inside where it's safe, and they become glued to their new mobile phones. Because of this, the goddesses start to lose their share power to the R-Phones and become weaker while trying to defend their land. Nepgear is then forced to take up the mantle of the goddess of Planeptune. She meets some new friends and is joined by old ones on her journey to gather all the goddesses and retake Planeptune and make everything go back to normal again. Honestly, I just want to find out what's going to happen next. Is Neptune actually gone for good? What role do the other goddesses play in this? And why is R4 actually alive? There are a lot of things that just don't make sense, but it does seem like we are on the path to get some answers. As always, Neptunia games are filled to the brim with referential humor that is absolutely on point. At one point, you make your way to Leanbox and find a VTuber has become more popular than Vert. She promotes the shut-in life and says that this will make everyone happy. Her name is Anita Job. As in, I need a job, but also her name has the word neat in it. Rom also mentions really enjoying the game Pocketed Monstrosities. Maho says that dungeons are a great place to meet people, referencing the anime Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon. If you are a nerd, you're going to find enough references and jokes in this game to fill an entire landfill. I always appreciate these sort of things, but this game hits different with its focus on social media and lockdown mirroring our very own world. I really can't wait to get back and see where this story is gonna go. But that's all the pros I have so far. Now it's time for the wrath of the cons! Now I know the Neptunia series hasn't been well known for its graphics, but I don't really feel like I'm playing a PS5 game. I downloaded the PS4 version as well, but with the exception of the visuals looking a little bit more crisp on the PS5 version, I didn't really notice any performance improvements. Maybe it's the character model animations, but Neptunia Reverse on PS5 runs way better. Hell, Ninja War, which is a PS4 game, runs much smoother than this game. And maybe this will come with time and patches, but I'm just surprised that the PS5 version doesn't have a little bit more of a performance boost in comparison. Speaking of animations, some characters seem to share running animations. I don't know why you would make this a thing. If they're not shared, then they're extremely similar, because when you're running with someone like Nepgear and Uni side by side, you're gonna end up with the two looking way too similar. It almost feels cheap. At least most of the goddesses I've played with have unique run animations, and in combat everybody feels unique, but it's just these little things that seem to throw me off a little bit. Then you have the fact that even though we have an English dub, it doesn't feel like as many conversations are dubbed as we would have had in previous titles. I can understand side story conversations and stuff not being dubbed, but when your main story conversation isn't dubbed, it kind of feels weird. Like, why would you include a dub at all if you're only going to use it 25% of the time? Don't get me wrong, I appreciate the fact that we have English voices at all, but I really like sitting back and letting the characters tell the story rather than having to read it myself. This last complaint is more of a personal thing, but progress is really important to me, and it's not like this game doesn't have that. As you level up, you'll learn more moves and skills. You'll also be able to buy stronger weapons and equipment as you progress through the story. So from a combat perspective, you have a great example of what progress should look like. But when it comes to the characters involved in the story, it feels like you're given too much right off the bat. I can understand when you're investigating the lab before the 2-year time skip that you control all 4 goddess candidates. But when the time skip happens, it would be nice to have a small period where you only control Nepgear. There's a point where she heads out to clear her head after mourning the loss of Neptune. This is where she runs into Maho, but it would have been a good idea to have a couple of battles you run into before meeting her. This would instill in the player the importance of switching characters, as you'll run low on AP after completing your combo. Then when you go back with Maho, Uni decides to stay with you, but Rom, Ram, and Blonde decide to go back to Louis to focus on protecting their own land. This way you can switch back and forth between Nepgear and Uni until you unlock Vert as a playable character. I just always feel weird when a JRPG gives you a full party from the beginning, or even a larger group than what you can put into battle. Again, this is a me thing, and I understand that it's a me thing, but I need to voice my opinion because what else am I gonna do on this channel? In the end, Neptunia Sisters vs. Sisters really felt like it stood out as the next step in the Neptunia franchise. I believe this is being considered a spin-off, but I think it would be a really good idea for Idea Factory to consider taking the mainline Neptunia series in this direction. The combat is more fluid and really makes a difference. Again, I'll compare this to what Ryza did for the Atelier franchise. By evolving the combat system while remaining true to the roots, I think the Neptunia series could really benefit from taking this system and running with it. With all that being said, I don't think it comes as a surprise, but I give Neptunia Sisters vs. Sisters a thumbs up. Most of my complaints were nitpicks. I'm incredibly appreciative of the English dub, even though I wish we could see more scenes dubbed in the story. Though the visuals could be better on modern consoles, they aren't the main thing that makes or breaks a game. I mean, I still play games on the PS3 and Switch, two consoles notorious for dropping frames like they're beats in a dubstep song, and the whole thing about progress, again, is a personal thing I've noticed with a lot of recent JRPGs. But the combat improvements keep me exploring dungeons. I want to unlock more moves and build better combos. The story also keeps me coming back to find out what's going to happen next. If you are a fan of the Neptunia franchise, you shouldn't miss out on this entry. Anyways, everybody, thank you so much for watching my mini review on Neptunia's Sisters vs. Sisters. If you enjoyed it, give it a like and subscribe for more. Also, comment with your thoughts below on what you thought of the game, and let me know who your favorite Neptunia character is. If you'd like to help support this channel and what I do here, you can join the guild just like the awesome people that you're seeing on screen right now. You can join their names at the end of every single video for just $1 a month over on Patreon, or if you'd like to help to donate in a one-time fashion, you can do so over on Ko-fi. There are other rewards and other tiers as well, so check out the links that you see on screen, and I will see you all down in the comments.